Hi, and thanks for joining me for this reflective video on the conversation with Carol Sanford. So by this point in time, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I hope you've noted your experience of being with the conversation. And I hope you're going to enjoy my reflection on my experience in the conversation and what sort of emerged since, really. So this is what we're talking about. Okay, this is Carol's currently latest work as I record this in January 2023, and here is some of the other work. And so this is one of the key things. I came into knowing Carol's work through one of these books, The Regenerative Business. I came across it, it kind of called to me, but I couldn't by myself, just with her book, really find a way to access and apply that that knowledge and that way of being, that framework. And so, as we've discussed in the conversation, what I've been doing since I made this podcast recording with Carol is going back, starting with the regenerative business, and then looking at the responsible business, the regenerative life, no more feedback, the responsible entrepreneur. And it is a very different experience now, having to use, the frame that we explored, sort of opened up a new way of being with Carol's work that I've accessed through indirect work. So in every conversation I've ever had with Carol, whether that's a direct conversation, whether it's a conversation just between she and I, or with many other beings involved, there is always this real tenderness and love. And I've written an article specifically about a very confronting version of one of those experiences that I would encourage you to read if you're interested in what it is to be in this way of being, of really exceptional external considering for another being's development. And this conversation about indirect work with Carol, it was another gift that I received and hope by now to have shared with you, of deep external considering, of love for the development of me, Carol, you, and many, many beings that we're interacting with in our field and system. And this conversation, for me, I experienced through three specific ways, all of which is grouped within indirect work. So first of all, sensing and shifting paradigms. I think in my life, I can recall, probably at this point in my early 40s, at least half a dozen distinct paradigm shifts. Several within the last decade, and one in particular in the last few years, since coming into contact with Carol and other really deep practitioners and guides in living systems work. So there's going to be more coming specifically about paradigms and worldviews and shifting these over the next few conversations. So I won't go into too much detail in that here, but again, you can see it's integral to Carol's work. And as I was being with indirect work, and paradigm shifting is woven through the whole thing, it was really pulling at me in a heart-centered way and in a guttural way as well, that I just sense that this is what I'm being called to do, being moved to do. And we spend quite a bit of time talking about matrices, Carol's term for these sets of conditions that are defined and created kind of according to the paradigm we're in and the worldview that we're forming as the lens. And autocratic, humanistic, or developmental organization? Which one of those would you rather be co-creating? I'm investing myself in developmental organizations. And I think, again, these two other ways of being which have become so dominant and conventional and accepted, I think there's real work to do in shifting there. And re-examining. I mean, how often has someone that you're looking to as a guide said to you, don't trust me, without examining what I'm saying? Don't just believe that the advice I'm giving you, you should immediately go and put in place. Hold the idea that I'm sharing with you, or carry the framework with you and bring it into your world, in your real life, and then in motion, see what happens. And ask yourself, what was I thinking before? And then, what am I going to do now? And this is again, very significant shifting. And when I was with Carol in the conversation and in being with the book, everything was going off. Head, heart, gut, feet, everything was kind of wanting to be in this way. And it was really quite a powerful experience as such. And then in the conversation, we primarily focused on consciousness. And there's 3 points on this triad. So we focus on consciousness because, for the most part, that is the point of this framework, which is hardest to move, to generate, and to shift with. There are 2 others, culture and capability. So if you haven't already, please do engage with this work and explore the 3 points fully. But in engaging consciousness and doing so, sensing and shifting paradigms, being aware of the matrix that you're in and actively co-creating, and re-examining how you're doing that and the ideas that you're holding, think about this, or sense into this, beginning with the aim process. So as Carol suggests, set a short-term aim and see your progress with that. So my short-term aim right now is to create these additional pathways to access the work that's co-created in these conversations and see what happens. This is the first one. And this is the first take, and this is the only take that's going to be. So let's see. And then the other idea is this whole concept of long thought and being in long thought with a specific focus. And sharing now one that I'm going to be holding long thought, continuing to hold long thought with, is something that Carol has provoked me about pretty much ever since I come into contact with her, which is, if what I sense is needed and is mine to do is to be part of changing the systems and co-creating new pathways, then how to do that? And in particular, to do that as external to the organizing group that I'm influencing onto as a consultant or a coach or an advisor or a facilitator, or to be in that organizing group, part of that system. And Carol has called me out on this several times and said, you need to be in the system, that there's really only so much you can ever do from the outside as a consultant, as a coach. So I have been giving this long thought over years at this point in time. And this year in particular, I'm going to be giving this some really long thought about, do I consider myself to be in best service as an external being, interacting with and operating on many different organising groups? Or do I accept an invitation to become one with an organising group and be an agent for transformative change within that group? That is where I will be spending my long thought. And I would love to hear, if you're willing to share, what your aim might be and where you are in motion with it, and what you might devote some long thought to. So with those 2 prompts from me and the many, many prompts from Carol, thank you for being here and experiencing this reflective offering. I look forward to offering the next one very, very soon.